Be me. 35F, labor economist from Boston. Spent 8 years researching gender wage gaps in America. Working at progressive think tank on economic equality. My entire career built on documenting how women earn less. Always pointing to Nordic countries as the solution. Look at Iceland, #1 in gender equality for years. Norway, Sweden, Denmark right behind them. These countries figured it out. We need their model. Get offered 2-year research fellowship in Copenhagen. Studying Nordic labor markets and gender economics. This is my dream. Validates everything I believe. Moving to the feminist promised land. Friends excited at my going away party. You'll finally see what America could be. Hack my life. Fly to Denmark expecting vindication. University sets me up in nice Noribro apartment. Start fellowship on Monday, meet research team. 4 economists, mix of Danish and Norwegian. Everyone friendly, welcoming, speaks perfect English. First week diving into wage gap data. Pull up Denmark's national statistics database. Start calculating gender wage gaps. Expecting maybe 5%, something minimal. The adjusted gap is 5.8% for Denmark. Norway is 7.1%. Sweden is 13.4%. Check unadjusted numbers including part-time work. Denmark is 14.6%. Sweden is 17.9%. These aren't that different from America. Bring it to my colleague Lars at lunch. Ask if I'm calculating wrong. He looks at numbers and nods. Those are correct. That's our gender wage gap. But the rankings, I say, they show you solve this. He laughs gently. We rank high on other metrics. Parental leave, political representation, education equality. Wage gap is still there. Women work different sectors. They earn less. It's basic economics. I sit there completely stunned. This is not what the rankings told me. Week 2, and I dig deeper into data. Find that occupational segregation is worse here. Women dominate health, education, social care. Men dominate business, tech, engineering. In fact, segregation worse than most countries. Show this to Norwegian colleague Ingrid. She confirms, yes, this is well known. Public sector is 70% women. Private sector leadership is 75% men. Everyone gets benefits and work-life balance, though. So nobody sees it as a problem. This contradicts everything I thought I knew. Month 2, and I'm reading Nordic feminist research. Find that generous parental leave has unintended effects. Women take 70 to 80% of leave time. Employers factor this into hiring decisions. Not explicitly, that would be illegal, but implicitly through commitment assumptions. Subsidized childcare enables mothers to work. But childcare sector is almost entirely women, paid less than male-dominated sectors. The policies I advocated for have consequences. I never considered in American context. Present preliminary findings at department seminar. Show data on occupational segregation. Point out Nordic countries rank worse than America. On women in business leadership and tech. The room gets uncomfortable. Professor says I'm using wrong metrics. Nordic model isn't about women doing men's work. It's making women's work valued and supported. I push back. Doesn't segregation limit choices? Another professor responds, Danish women have choices. They choose care work, teaching, nursing, good hours and security. Why is that wrong? After seminar, Ingrid takes me for coffee. Says she can see I'm frustrated. I tell her I expected proof. Nordic model works. Instead, finding different inequality with better marketing. She responds carefully. You're using American lens. You assume women want high-powered careers. Here, women want security, time, balance. System gives them that. It's working as designed. Month 3, and I interview Danish women. Talk to nurse Sophie. She's 32. Could have gone to medical school. Grades were good. Why didn't you? I ask. She looks at me confused. Medical school is 7 years, then residency. I wanted to work, have a life. Nursing pays well, good hours, secure pension. I'm happy. Why would I do more? Interview teacher Meta. She's 28. Studied economics, could have done finance. Teaching is meaningful. I shape children's lives. Plus summers off, work-life balance. But teachers earn less than finance, I point out. She shrugs. I'm happier than they are. Every interview follows same pattern. Women choosing care, education, public service. Over business, tech, high-paying private sector. They all seem genuinely satisfied. Not oppressed or settling. Just valuing different things than Americans. Month 4, attending conference in Oslo. Researcher presents Iceland's gender equality model. Shows women are 80% of nurses. Men are 85% of engineers. Someone asks how that's equality. Researcher responds with more data. Women have highest workforce participation in Europe. Equal pay for equal work enforced by law. Generous parental leave and childcare. Fact they choose different work as freedom. I raise my hand during Q&A. Point out choices are socially constructed. Women aren't naturally drawn to care work. Researcher nods, acknowledges partly true. But after decades of equality policies, and women having genuine options, preferences remain different between genders. Can't force people into careers for statistical parity. Room generally agrees with her. I'm the only one bothered by this. Month 5, having dinner with Danish friends. 3 women from work and social circles. I bring up my research frustrations. Nana works in municipal government. Makes less than private sector but secure job. Says she doesn't envy brother in consulting. He makes twice her salary working 60 hours. Kirsten is social worker, emotionally draining. But leaves at 4, has time for kids. Husband in IT works more, earns more. This division works for their family. They ask about my research. I tell them I expected wage gap solution. Found gap still exists, just packaged differently. Nana asks, but do American women earn more? I tell them about friends in Boston. Law, consulting, tech, making 6 figures. Working 70 hours, burned out, no life. Kirsten says that sounds terrible. I'd rather earn less and have a life. Isn't that what feminism should give us? The choice to not sacrifice everything. Month 6, and I meet American woman at expat meetup. From New York, in Stockholm 5 years. Working as lawyer for Swedish firm. She had the exact same experience. Came thinking Nordic model was perfect. Found it's just different trade-offs. In New York, she made partner track. 80 hours a week, great money, completely miserable. Here works 40 hours, makes less, but has time for hobbies and relationships. She asks me a haunting question. Would you rather make $100K working 70 hours? Or $70K working 40 hours with better security? American feminism says fight for $100K. Nordic feminism says fight for $70K being enough. I don't have a clear answer. Month 7, analyzing women in leadership data. Nordic countries have fewer women CEOs than America. Proportionally less women in senior management. Less women in high finance and tech leadership. But more women in parliament. More in public sector leadership. More in civil society organizations. Women here have power in different domains. Public and community versus corporate. Both matter, but American metrics only count one. This makes me question everything. The rankings I cited for years. The model I held as ideal. It achieves different things than I thought. Month 8, presenting updated research. Mixed audience of academics and policymakers. Show findings about persistent wage gaps. Occupational segregation worse than America. Fewer women in private sector leadership. Then show the other side. A lower poverty for single mothers. Higher workforce participation rates. Better work-life balance satisfaction. Lower gaps in life satisfaction and happiness. Nordic model doesn't close wage gap. It makes the gap matter less. Through social safety nets and worker protections. Cultural acceptance of different priorities. Audience reception is mixed. Some agree this is right framing. Others say I'm apologizing for inequality. Women earning less is always a problem. Month 9 interviewing women leaders. Few who made senior private sector roles. Talk to CFO Anya. She's 45. Runs finance for major Danish company. Ask how she got here as woman in Denmark. She says it wasn't easy. Required sacrifices. Worked like men work, long hours, full commitment. Delayed children. Hired full-time childcare. Husband took most parental leave. Opted out of typical Danish woman's path. Do you regret it? I ask. She thinks carefully. I'm proud, but sometimes wonder. My sister is teacher with 3 kids. She seems more content than I am. I have status and salary, but exhausted. Danish model makes balance easy. Makes ambition hard. Both have costs, neither obviously right. Month 10 writing first year findings. Trying to be honest about what I found. Nordic model doesn't solve wage gap. Women still earn less on average. Still cluster in lower paying sectors. Still take more time for caregiving. But model makes outcomes less catastrophic. Everyone has healthcare regardless of employment. Part-time work doesn't mean poverty. Parental leave doesn't risk your job. Education and childcare are accessible. Not equality of outcomes, but adequacy of outcomes for different choices. My American brain still rebels. Wants women in boardrooms and tech. Wants statistical parity across sectors. Wants women earning exactly what men earn. But time here teaching me that might not be what Nordic women want. Forcing them might be its own oppression. Month 11 and Lars asks hard question. What do you actually want for women, Rebecca? Not as category, but as individual humans. What kind of lives should they have? I realize I don't have clear answer. American feminism taught me to want advancement, career success, financial independence, breaking barriers. But is that the only valid good life? Can good life include choosing care work, choosing part-time, choosing community over career? As long as those choices don't lead to poverty. Maybe Nordic models solved different problem. Not making women earn like men, but making it okay to earn less. Year mark and I'm back in America for conference. Presenting Nordic research to American economists. Show data on persistent wage gaps. Occupational segregation, worse than US. Fewer women in corporate leadership. Audience is disappointed, almost hostile. Someone says this undermines Nordic model. Woman economist says I'm apologizing for patriarchy. Women earning less is always oppression. I try explaining the trade-offs. Better work-life balance, social safety nets. Women I interviewed seemed genuinely satisfied. She cuts me off, false consciousness. They've been socialized to accept less. We should want them to want more. I realize the divide is fundamental. American feminism about achieving like men. Nordic feminism about making women's choices viable. Neither side sees the other's validity. Month 14, and I'm writing final report. Trying to be fair to both systems. Nordic countries haven't solved gender wage gap. Women still earn 15 to 18% less. Still concentrated in lower paying sectors. Still underrepresented in private leadership. By American metrics, this looks like failure. But by Nordic metrics might be success. Those lower earnings still provide decent living. Those pink-collar jobs have dignity and security. Women can choose balance without poverty. Goal wasn't eliminating the gap, but making the gap less consequential. My conclusion, unsatisfying to everyone. Nordic and American models solve different problems. America wants women competing equally in market. Nordic countries want market outcomes to matter less. America pushes women into male fields. Nordic countries support women in female fields. Neither eliminates gender inequality, just distributes costs differently. Month 16 presenting at University of Iceland. Iceland ranks number 1 in equality, but has worst occupational segregation in Europe. I present this paradox in my talk. How can country be most equal but most segregated? Answer depends on how you define equality. Identical outcomes, Iceland fails. Supported choices, Iceland succeeds. Women in boardrooms, Iceland struggles. Women in parliament, Iceland leads. Icelandic professor approaches after. Says she's researched this for decades. Asks what I think solution is. I tell her honestly, I don't know anymore. Maybe we're asking wrong question. Not how do we close wage gap, but how do we make all work valued? How do we ensure everyone earns enough? She nods, that's the Nordic approach. Admits it has limitations too. Women still hit glass ceilings here. Still do more unpaid care work. Still sacrifice career for family more. Better safety nets don't eliminate gender norms. Just make them more comfortable to live with. Month 18 and fellowship ending. Preparing to return to America. Research done. Conclusions messy. No clean narrative about Nordic superiority. Just complicated reality of different trade-offs. Back in Boston after 2 years. Think tank job waiting for me. First meeting about closing gender wage gap. Everyone's citing Nordic countries as model. Finally, someone asks my thoughts. I tell them what I learned. Nordic countries still have significant wage gaps. Women cluster in lower paid sectors. Occupational segregation worse than here. Room goes silent. Someone looks betrayed. But I continue with full picture. Nordic women have things we don't. Security, time, support for different choices. Their gaps matter less because safety nets exist. They value different things than we do. Colleague interrupts, so we shouldn't learn from them. No, I say, learn the right lessons. Not that they eliminated gaps, they didn't. But they built systems where gaps less catastrophic. Taking time for family doesn't mean poverty. Choosing lower paid work still means dignity. Maybe better goal than perfect parity. Meeting ends with uncomfortable tension. Several think I've sold out. But few approach after. Glad someone complicating the narrative. Progressive policy needs honest assessment. Not idealized versions of other countries. 6 months later, writing book about research. Title: The Nordic Paradox. Gender equality rankings versus reality. Not takedown or celebration. Just honest look at what model achieves. And what it doesn't achieve. Book gets mixed reviews. Progressive feminists say, too critical. Conservatives say proves welfare fails. Nordic scholars say too American-focused. But hundreds of emails from readers. Women caught between worlds. American women exhausted from corporate climb. Nordic women frustrated by limited ambition. All saying thank you for showing complexity. That's when I know research mattered. Not because it had clear answers, but because it asked better questions. Year later, invited back to Copenhagen. Give talk about findings. Present data honestly to packed room. Yes, wage gaps smaller than America, but they exist with specific causes. Yes, work-life balance enviable, but correlates with gendered patterns. Yes, women satisfied. But satisfaction isn't only equality measure. Young woman asks during Q&A. So you're saying our model failed? No, I respond, succeeded at different things. Succeeded at making motherhood compatible with work. At valuing care labor through public sector. At ensuring everyone lives decently. Didn't eliminate occupational segregation. Or put equal women in corporate power. Those might not have been the goals. Older professor responds. When they built welfare state. Goal wasn't making women act like men, but making care work valued and supported. Maybe we succeeded at what we intended, even if doesn't match American feminist vision. I nod, exactly my point. Different feminisms, different goals, different outcomes. None perfect, all trying to help women. After talk, Lars takes me for dinner. Laugh about how much changed. He says I've become more Danish in thinking. Learning to accept questions without answers. I tell him I've made Americans more Danish. Teaching them to question assumptions. To see trade-offs instead of solutions. Anyway, that's my story. About expecting Nordic countries solved wage gaps. learning they just made them less painful. About American and Nordic feminism, both trying to help women in different ways. About discovering equality isn't one thing, but many goals that sometimes contradict. I still believe in closing wage gaps, but understand now it's not only measure. Women's well-being depends on many factors. Earnings, time, security, meaning, choice. Nordic model optimizes different ones than America. Neither country has it figured out. Both could learn from each other. If we stopped treating like competition, started seeing as different experiments in making women's lives better.